Right, so a bit of an update. I finished off the doors, just gave them all a bit of a clean up with the grinder, then sanded everything down. So what I've done is I've taken those two doors over to my friendly neighbourhood paint shop, and they are going to be doing some giving them a coat of epoxy primer and doing some filling on the seams where the welds were and that sort of thing. So they're done. Once those doors are done, I'm going to take the wings down, but before I do that I need to take the wings off and finish stripping out the old stuff, whatever you call it, the old undercoat, underseal, and then I'm going to give those a coat of the black epoxy mastic from Rustbuster that I've been using. So I'm going to give them a coat on the inside, then I'll take these down. I've done all the little repairs on those, fitted another bracket here where that had come away. I've welded in the bracket, that's all done. That'll now sit right. That bracket there is in the right place. So yeah, it's getting there. Just need to now start on the back. So I've just taken off the spare wheel and the spare wheel tub, which look great, but I think it's savable. I just think it needs a good sandblasting, you know, cut a little patches probably, but it's solid enough and it came down easily. So the spare wheel's underneath that now, which gives me access to the back of the car. So what I appear to have at the moment, from what I can see, is the panel that sits in behind the Valance here needs some work, and certainly as it comes, as you drop down around the back of this tonneau here, that's quite rotten, and obviously I cut out the floor for the boot, so it's all a bit rotten in here. You probably can't see very well. I can't see very well, so here's a torch. Yeah, so you can see they're very crusty. So this bit here would have been part of this panel here, and that's kind of melted away there. And I think the tonneau might actually be okay, but I won't really know until I start cutting things out and getting to grips with that. A bit of a repair in the boot floor here. Obviously this has been done before, not particularly well, but looks solid enough, so I might be able to get away with just kind of spot repairs. Lots of this junk everywhere. Like another repair there, a couple of holes there, pretty ropey up there, bad repair there, which was the same as the other side, so I need to cut that out and do that properly. You can see there they just put a patch straight over it, and that goes almost all the way around to the top. So I might even just look at getting a, well no, actually I won't bother with that. I just think I need to cut that out and do it properly, so I'll do that. I don't need a repair panel for that. Otherwise boot floor solid, and this side, this corner is pretty good, so I'm not too concerned about that. And at least it gives me some point of reference when I'm looking at doing what I need to do on that side. So at the moment I've got to drill all the spot welds out on this panel here. I guess this panel's probably spot welded inside the seam here to the tonneau. I'm not quite sure. I don't think I'm going to cut down there. I'm going to probably cut a bit further along, just there, just a sort of short bit of butt welding to do to get it back on again. So I'll cut there, I'll cut there, drill out all the spot welds along there, and there's a load more spot welds underneath. And once I've done that, hopefully I can remove that panel quite cleanly, see the state of this from the inside, because I can see some pretty heavy duty filler here. I mean, obviously this panel probably gets quite a bit of abuse over the years, and it's marginally, you know, it's mainly hidden by the bumper. So if I strip it down and give it a sandblast and then have a look at the repairs, and then do a bit of filling and just put it back on again, hopefully, rather than having to buy another panel. Anyway, we shall see. Okay, so lots of spot welds. This did hang on for dear life. It didn't want to come off in a hurry, but I got it off pretty cleanly. I'm going to have to readjust this flange because it got bent a bit, just trying to get behind the welds to bang through them with the chisel. after I drilled them out. But the panel beneath is, as expected, Coupe. So yeah, that's toast pretty much from halfway down. But even though it looks very crusty up top, I think it's fairly solid. So it's really kind of looking at along there. It's an interesting panel to try and fix. I think I'm going to end up doing it in sort of sections and just patching it up. And obviously you don't see it, so it's just got to be strong. Give it a good coat of epoxy, make it as rust proof as I can, and then I'm going to take all of this down to the blasting cabinet today. So I'll give all of that a really good clean, blast off all the old paint because it's going to be repainted anyway, reveal what dents and damage are underneath here. But again, you know, all of this is kind of pretty unnoticeable on the car, so as long as it's solid and, you know, not completely knackered, I can reuse it and weld it back on again at a later date once I've sorted out this rear panel. So yeah, just need to get started on that and figure out the best way of attacking it. But it doesn't seem too bad as it follows underneath the tonneaus, which are the two corner. These two sections here are called tonneaus, which I find a bit confusing. And, so grab the torch. So if you, as I said I was going to, I didn't want to cut down the join because I didn't want to do any damage to the tonneaus because they look fairly solid to me. But if you get in behind there, yes, there's some surface corrosion, but actually it didn't look too bad, and I think I'm just going to squirt a load of, when the time comes, we're getting the Dinitrol into those kind of spaces and filling them up. But in the meantime, obviously, yeah, just to focus on this back section where it's obviously rotted out, and I suspect water's been sat in here between the two panels and just dissolved it. But this is quite thick metal compared to the actual outer panel, so I guess it's survived a bit better. But you can definitely see where the water line was, or where the sort of, you know, water was sitting, because it's all along that bottom section. So I'm going to take a wire wheel to it now and clean it all off, and then assess how much I need to replace and whereabouts I need to replace it. So just a quick update. Having managed to drill out all the spot welds, removing that panel, I took it down and media blasted it, revealing a nice sort of slap-on patch there. So we'll do something about that. Obviously the media blaster finds every little bit of corrosion, but actually I can repair most of that without a problem, so I think I'll just remove that panel and probably try and do a better job of that. But yeah, it's alright, I can reuse that. This is a bit of a nightmare, so I've cut off the half of this to leave the other bit as a sort of reference, really. As you can see, and this hasn't been sandblasted yet, but yeah, lots of fun to be had, lots of holes, like that one there, for example. Don't know what that big hole is there, maybe there was something coming out the back at some point, the exhaust bracket maybe, I don't know. Let's see. But so what I did was I took the piece that I cut off down with me when I did the media blasting. Oh, I also did the spare wheel carriers, actually come out quite well, and it's pretty solid. Yeah, there's a few holes, it's a bit there that I can cut out and put in a new bit of metal there, a few holes to patch up and repair. But once that's done, good coat of epoxy, and that'll be good to go for second round. So what I'm trying to do with this is, I did have a go at making this, and I kind of got somewhere with it, but with the limited tools I've got and knowledge, frankly, because I'm not an experienced panel beater, I was starting to realise that this was going to be too much. It's actually quite a challenging panel to make. You've got lots of weird different angles while trying to maintain a nice curve at the bottom on the folded over lip, which obviously is where you then spot weld. So having deliberated and looked at different ways of doing this, what I'm now doing is basically cutting out the worst bits of paper doily and letting in some patches filling any smaller holes, just welding those up using a brass block to help, so that I can weld onto that without it sticking, and it takes some of the heat out of the panel. And actually I think I can probably do a reasonably good job of recovering this, and then again, once it's all epoxied in place, welded up and covered up, you're never going to see it anyway. So that was my way in the end that I decided to go with this. So still got quite a lot here to do, but I'm just doing it piece by piece, gradually, try not to put too much heat in and put it all out of place. So not easy, but it's just time consuming really, just fiddly. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, so I'll come back to you when I finish that. Okay, so I've been at this for about an hour now. It's yeah, fiddly, and it's very slow because you're trying not to put too much heat in, which is impossible, but you try not to make it too bad. But still got a bit to go, but just sort of picking an area and just trying to make it stronger, and then you sort of go on to the next area, utilising the strong bit to help the next bit. So it's yeah, it's fun. Right, okay, well, so I have managed to save, I don't know if that's the right word, Frankenstein this panel. So this was the one that was on this side. I've cut the other one off and sandblasted that. That's the other side. So I haven't started on that one yet, but as you can see, it's, you know, plenty of holes in that and lots of thin metal to try and find and avoid with the welder. So I think the way I'm going to do it is the same way I did the other one. I'll probably cut out, actually this one's easier because a large part of this is probably one flat piece there. If I can cut that out and keep the shape and weld in. The problem with doing bigger pieces is the warpage. You know, if you do it in pieces, smaller pieces, then you can sort of, you know, try and avoid that so much, but it's just too tempting on this one, I think, just to try and do it, because it has taken me hours to do this bit. You know, I've got a little piece in there, another piece in here, chased a few holes, filled them, ground it back, found more holes, you know. But it is solid, and once it's given a good coat of, that's the part of it you'll see, and once that's coated with epoxy, bearing in mind it's underneath the car anyway and you won't see it from the outside the car, you'll only see it when it's up on a lift, then I'm going to be, you know, that's fine. Can't get it, it's hard to make, so I managed to resurrect it. Hopefully I can do the same with this piece, weld that on, and then replace that chunky repair in this panel without warping that, hopefully. A few little corrosion pits there to fill and to cut out and to replace, and then that'll go back on. Okay, so a bit of a due for an update. I've been got on with a few things actually. So I managed to get this rear inner valance on. I've given it a coat of rust converter for the bits that aren't ground down, and I've just sort of gave everything a good wire brush and then just rust busted the converted all the rust. Need to give that a scuff up. Obviously where it's white it hasn't actually needed to be on there, so I just need to scuff that off. That'll all get an epoxy coating. The other part of it, the outer part, is over there. I welded in the repair panel that was there, was just to sort of tack on top of the job, and I've made up a panel and welded that back in there. That'll all be epoxied on the inside there. Filled a few little pinholes and corrosion holes, but that's now kind of ready to go back on. It's not bad, it's got a little bit of shape back into it. When I made the panel I made sure to try and get the shape back into it, but once it's on I think it'll look okay. Might be a little bit of filling to be done, but nothing too horrendous, not the 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch that was there before. So that, patiently waiting there. I decided to crack on and remove the rear suspension, so mainly so I've got good access underneath the car, because I want to start basically, once I get to the point where I'm now, I'm working on this bit now, but to get good access in there and to this rear bit here, which I've got to remake this panel, the inner panel there. and then to focus on the side here as well and do some repairs here and just try and do a proper job of that. It had a battery tray sort of plastered in there and just sort of bodged in a while back, but I've bought another tray to go in from Wadham's. Not a complex piece, but hey, it's got some curves in it, and I just thought, you know, save myself a bit of time. So it was only £45, I think. So yeah, so what I'm actually going to do is try and cut out the old patch, because you've got the rear sort of chassis or subframe is spot welded along that flange that runs along there, so that'll be underneath all of this. I suspect I can cut that away and get back to it where it was originally, and then I'm going to also release the spot welds on this side, which run just along there, and then I'm going to cut along the bottom, and then the new battery tray actually comes with a flange, which you then spot weld along here, which isn't as it was originally, but obviously because you're replacing it, this would have been one piece. The boot floor would have been one panel. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So it'll end up getting spot welded along there and spot welded along the flange, which should hopefully I can release there. So there's a lot of spot weld removal to be done, and also get rid of this gash repair here. And then start focusing on making some repairs to the inner wheel arch, which need to be done along the bottom. So I'll probably replace like a strip around the bottom of it. And then start working. Once I've done that, then I can get the new battery tray in and start working my way up the inside of the arch there, where you can see some pretty chunky repairs. All the way up here, there's just, you can see where they've just kind of used a combination of slapping on a patch and sealer to repair that. So I'm going to try and do a better job of that. So that'll be on the next bit. That's quite a lot worse than that side was, so I'm just going to attack it and do the same thing, remove the old patch first to leave as much as the original car in place, and then cut back to good metal and make a patch and actually butt weld it in place, rather than just slapping it over the top. So that'll be done. So yeah, so I'm going to crack on with this, and I'll update you as I get along with that. So, but with the suspension and the prop shaft and the brakes and the brake springs removed, the rear leaf springs, I've now got good access underneath the car, pretty much all the way up to the cross member. I'm going to take out the heater unit, and I'm going to take out the bump stops and some other bits and pieces and bracketry, and then I'm going to be able to focus on scraping off all the crap underneath, which I'm really not looking forward to. But if I want to do this and have it all nicely painted, and I do, because this stuff is like painting the car with a sheet of iron once it's set, then I need to get all the old crap off and degrease it and get it back to bare metal, or certainly get it back to a state where it can take the new paint. So that's where I am at the moment. Right, okay, so what I've done is I've just decided the best way to attack this is to chop out part of the old pan, rather than trying to get these welds. I have got them sort of cut, but it's going to be, I want to try and leave the flange that's underneath here intact. So I've chopped along the flange, as I will show you now. So as you can see, the flange comes out to there. Yeah, you can see the spot weld bits there. So rather than just trying to drill out all the spot welds underneath the car, it would be really painful, I decided to cut out the this part of the repair corner, the repair battery tray that was put in, and basically just pasted on top of what was there. So now I can attack these spot welds from above. I've got some visibility of what's going on here. Obviously I didn't want to do anything to disturb the bracket mount. That's been welded there, which I think it was originally, but not probably a bit of a better job than that was. So I want to get all of this ground back, cleaned off, ready to take the new pan, whilst leaving that flange intact. This is the remains of the old repair, which has a flange there, so I'm going to get that out. So all of this will go along here, and then it's going to continue going across the other side of here. This sort of, for want of a better word, subframe. So so I've still got to drill out the welds, but I'm going to do it from above. It's a lot easier than trying to do it from underneath, and then just gradually peel it back and work on it, peel it back, find all the spot welds and gradually work everything back, and then effectively start cleaning everything up to take the new panel. So that's where I am now. Okay, so a bit of an update, just keeping sort of a bit more detail around this battery tray replacement. Stay up, you fucking piece of shit. Oh, don't you hate it when all your magnets get covered in swarf and bits of welding, grinding dust. Right, you gonna stay this time? No. Right, there you go. So all I'm doing here is I've basically started cutting down the middle. I knew those were there. Well, I kind of took it bit by bit so you can see anything that's coming through. You don't want to go too deep, so you don't want to cut into this structure here, because that's obviously part of the strengthening of the rear shackle for the rear leaf spring. And then you're just literally cutting a slice out, which then means you can sort of pull out the centre bit. So that will have been the patch that was put over. Occasionally you bump into other little interesting pieces. In fact, I think this has probably been patched more than once over the years. And then once you've done that, they just get the old angle grinder on here, scrape that worst bit off there, because that's going to go all over the shop. Get off there. Just more seam sealer, just to cover up any well, everything that's shit. Right, so I'm going to try and do this one-handed, so just bear with me. Let's get rid of that. I do think that this is by far the best tool for revealing where your welds are. So you've got one, two, three, four, maybe one there, but definitely one there. Grab my trusty, this is the carbide bit that Sealy do. It's 25 quid, but tell you what, lasts a lot longer than the other one. So just, it's 8mm, so okay, so I'm finding this very useful here, just pry bar, and now you can lift up, there you go, pop. So that's lifting up what would have been probably the original floor, or maybe not. Because this was original because the patch was just putting up here, so this is part of the original floor. So you can gradually sort of peel it all back, exposing obviously the structure of the subframe underneath, and yeah, quite crusty, but nothing that not too bad. We lost a bit of the flange just here, so I'm probably going to do some repairs, grind all this off, because obviously that's all bits and pieces. You can see there's layer upon layer of grinds and shit welding and all sorts of stuff where previous patches have been done. So I'm going to grind all that back, then I can really get into here and see what I'm going to probably do here is go, because this is all obviously all one piece. So I'm just going to go straight up there, cut round to here probably, and put in a new piece of metal. So that'll just be one piece, easy to do. And obviously now I've now got another flange like this on this side. So that's the inside there of that you know, that subframe, that chassis leg, whatever. So you got this is repeated here, and then finishes just up there. So you're basically going to run your at the end, run your grinder right down that corner piece there to just take that off, but obviously trying not to do any damage underneath. I'm wanting to leave the flange intact. So by the end of it, I should have 2 flanges ready to weld to the bottom of the new pan, and that should all be clean there. And then obviously I will be spot welding the new pan into the side there, and then it spots weld with the flange all the way around here, and I can repair all of this, cut away any of this. So this is bits of the old patch that I left behind when I cut it out, so all that can be ground away and replaced. So yeah, it gives you an opportunity just to check the state of this as well. So I hoovered everything out. I'm just going to be filling that cavity with wax at the end with this built hamber stuff, cavity wax, and then that'll hopefully stop any you know, further rusting there. In fact, I'll probably give it a bit of a spray before I weld the panel on top, just to make sure I get it into some of these little nooks and crannies, because it's not easy. You've got the hole there anyway, which is one of the bolt holes, and you've got another hole there in front of that brace, which is obviously meant for drainage, because the chassis arm sweeps up from there on, so all the water's going to come back and slosh around in here. But it will, if that ever got blocked, it will have got trapped. So I will be using that to obviously underseal it and cavity wax it, and just fill it full of cavity wax. So yeah, not too bad. Got a little bit of a thing going on down here, so what I might do is plate that, but it's going to be quite an awkward one to weld, but I'm going to grind it out and probably plate that as well. So there you go, that's where we are so far. So if you're doing a battery tray, you kind of should be doing this, because a lot of people just paste it over the top, and you know, you never get to deal with all the other stuff underneath when you do that, and gradually that'll go, and you might have a nice battery tray, but all the rest of it will be rotten. So yeah. Okay, so I drilled out the rivets down this length here. It's easy, once you wire wheeled you could easily see them, so I've just drilled through, and that actually came off quite cleanly. So that's the original floor, which is why it came off quite cleanly, because it wouldn't have been sort of welded and bodged over the years. So that's just out. Now I've got both flanges intact. Now I can start to do a little bit of remedial work inside here, clean that all up, straighten up these flanges and repair them where I need to. Then I'm also going to cut away the bottom of that, sort out that, fix that, and start to put it back together again. There you go. So anyway, that's where we are. Okay, so I carried on, just done some rust treatment in there. Actually, I just missed a bit, I can see. This panel's all ready to go in now. I've marked it and drilled all the holes and punched all the holes for the spot welds or the plug welds. I'm just going to give that some paint before I put it in, just so that the bit that's facing down within the channel there is painted. So I'll probably just put some etch on that, and then the rest of it's going to get done with the old epoxy when I do that. So I'm waiting to get enough to do to make worth mixing a batch up. So yeah, all good. This was a fiddly bastard, getting that panel there to remake that inner panel. Yeah, that wasn't much fun, but it's done now, so there you go. Right, so the battery boot floor repair battery side is all done. It's all welded in, sort of butt welded up here, plug welded around there, seam welded at the back, because I had to modify the back of the tray a bit, but it's a very good fit. So, and then I've elected not to try and cut it in and butt weld it all the way along there. That was going to be a real bastard to do. So I've plug welded it along there, and then I'm going to go underneath at a later date when I've cleaned all the crap off underneath, and I'm going to do another welded seam along underneath. So it's very strong, and it's plug welded all the way along on the flanges here. So yeah, so that's all in. Replaced obviously the bottom of the wheel arch, that's all done there. Just need to actually grind off the other side of the welds there, and all of this is all then plug welded along here, joined into that. So and recreated that. So that's a small hole in there for the minute, but I'll drill that out when I fit the wing, because that takes one of the fixings for the wing to there. So the next stage is to probably clean out that wheel arch and have a look at the state. I know I'm pretty much going to have to replace the top 3 or 4 inches out here, but I mean it's one flat piece of metal all the way around, possibly with a lip on it. Don't know yet. See how bad it is and how much I have to cut away. So that's the next task. So I think I'll start by cleaning out all the old crud. Already some, when the guy came around with his laser and did a bit for me just to show me how it worked. Anyway, so I just need to get on with that. So a bit of scraping to be done now, and then once I've done the wheel arch, and there's a bit to do here because you can see it's all a bit patchy around there, there's a hole there, back end of the sill where it joins onto the back of the sill, shit. I mean obviously I think I'm going to replace the outer sill on this one because it's not a good line at the moment. I think it's been replaced badly at another time. I think the inner sill's still savable, and hopefully the middle one, although I do have a middle sill spacer for that. But I'm just going to start by getting the wheel arch done, because then the main and only major piece of welding left to do will be that outer sill. That'll be it. I'm repairs to that wing, doors and stuff like that, but as far as the actual shell is concerned, or the body, that will be pretty much it. So I'm looking forward to getting to that point. And I know that jacking point at the rear is a bit shonky. Front one's definitely a bit shonky. Bottom of the A-post has gone there, so I've got quite a lot of work to do, but it's starting to see a bit of a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, there you go.